families of Lieu kids. This is your host, Winnie Chant. Since March 2020, there's an alarm increase in racial discrimination and racial motivated violence against Chinese Americans. So today we are pleased to introduce our guest, Betty Liu, to our program. And she will share with our families and how to talk about racism to them. Betty Liu, she is most well known for her leadership role in children's education. So currently she is the president of Torrance Unified School District Board of Education, but formerly she was the deputy attorney general and felony prosecutor of California Department of Justice. Now, her husband is also an active community member, and he is the U.S. Congressman Ted Lieu, representing the 33rd District of California. But besides their active role in public life, the Betty I know is a devoted mom who has raised two great kids. So without further ado, let me introduce my guest of today, Betty, to our program. So Betty, do you want to say hello to our family here?
Hi, La Jaja kids. And thank you, Winnie, for having me here. I'm very happy of what you guys do. We need it in our community.
I know Betty not as being the former deputy attorney general. I know her as a mom. She's really a great mom, and she and I, besides putting food on the table, washing dishes, doing the laundry, we actively involved in schools and busy shuffling our kids to different activities. So yeah, she has raised two great kids who are not only high academic achievers, hardworking, well manners, and they are just like their parents, very community driven. So to start here, maybe you can share with our audience, our parents here, what's your parenting style? What's your philosophy? Any tips that you can share to just raise such two great kids?
Oh, thank you. But I know that you're raising your son very well too. A lot of our Asian American families value family a lot, and I think we all instill that in our kids.
Mm-hmm.
But other values that that my husband and I want to instill in our kids is honesty,
Mm-hmm.
kindness, respect, and hardworking ethics.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that they have done, they really believe it, and there are many things that they did ever since they were little that shows that each component of what we want have been instilled in them, and they understand that. So now that they're young teenagers, one is a young teenager, one is a mid-teenager, they still have that in them and feel a lot better about them going off to college next year.
Good. Now, not much are known about your private life. Would you be kindly to share with us any memorable moment you had with your kids?
Sure. Yeah, my husband tends to be more private, especially because he's such a public servant. His day job, actually night job also, is being a public servant. So he tends to be more private. But some of the funny things that our kids did, I can say honesty, this reflects that. And this is kind of tricky of my younger son. When they were little, I said, no video game playing in the daytime, on weeknights. No video game playing on weeknights. And one day, it was like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I go, what are you doing? You're playing a video game. I go, Mom, you only said no playing games on weeknights. It's still daytime. Oh my God, he blew me away. And that's like honest. He is being honest. He is following the rules and being respectful of that. Another respect that I really like is seeing my kids when they, when we went to visit their great grandmother, who's about 92 years old. We were walking from her house to a park together, but she had a cane and she walked slower. And without me telling them to, one of my boys just went over and go, Grandma, I'll hold you just in case you fall.
Like the harm.
And it made her so happy. And I was just like, it's respect for the elders, and it's also kindness and a lot of empathy, understanding what somebody might need. And I just was blown away with that. So there are stories like that that we have recorded down in our journal that we can't wait for them to read when they're older, when they're full-on adults.
Right, right. And I always, tell my children that be proud of your own heritage, your culture. You know the Asian way and you also know the American. You can pick the best of both worlds, right?
Yes, we have it great as Asian Americans. That's our identities in this country. Um, Diversity is not just a characteristic of the United States. It is the core of the United States. It's because of people like us that contributes to the innovative thinking that and different kinds of culture coming in. So it's never boring here. There's always a lot going on, and there's a lot more to learn always. So they definitely embrace themselves as Asian Americans. We get the best of both worlds, just like you say.
I always believe that, if we can always see each other as brother and sister with respect, with an open mind, and learn how to get along, it will make this world a better place and even a stronger country. But let's talk about, what is more and more increasing in parents is the recent Asian hate crimes that have surfaced since the pandemic here. So I just thought maybe to talk to before we talk about this serious topic, maybe you can help us define some terminology here between stereotype, prejudice or racism, and also discriminations.
Yes. Well, in terms of stereotype, the way I see it is a generalization of a person or a group of people, a place or a thing. And stereotypes can be very dangerous in terms of having them lead to prejudice and discrimination.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's why stereotypes are tend not to be a good thing, because you can't really judge a book by its cover.
Right.
You don't know what's inside the book. Every individual is different. One person could love math and the other person just wants to be in art. There's no outside. There are Asian Americans who in both fields. So you can't always say all Asian kids are they only like math and they're good at math. There's no artists in them. They're not creative. That's
Right.
not true at all. We
Yeah.
have all.
Like what are some Asian stereotypes? Like I don't know. Well, I mean, I have some ideas, but like besides, Asian kids are good in math and that the Asian are bad drivers. I don't know. What are some Asian like stereotypes that's out there? You and I, we are Asian, so we can speak of openly about this without offending anybody. But I just thought maybe we can talk about it and then really be mindful, because to teach children that, what, we bear that responsibility to change people's stereotypes about us.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And I think one of a very dangerous stereotype is that Asian Americans are very docile. We're timid. We don't speak up, and we are good followers. We hardworking. They recognize that, but we can't lead a corporation or be a judge or
Mm-hmm.
be a political leader, because they see us, both men and women, as just they believe that in our culture, we're supposed to be timid. Our culture, our proud Asian culture, is not teaching us to be timid. It actually is more respectful around elders.
Yeah, we're not timid. We're just being more respectful of your opinions.
Yes, and then I myself, along with a lot of Asian American leaders like you, and your people in your group, speak out and are leaders in helping other people in other communities in terms of speaking your opinion, not being afraid to speak up or act on what you believe in. We are not just followers. We can, speak our own minds.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different of a culture here as what it may be in Asia. Over here, we are Asian Americans, and we embrace that. And we always encourage people to speak up if they think that something's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, the emperor has no clothes in that children's story. we have to speak up and say, look, just because we're Asian doesn't mean that we're not going to say anything. We're going to say that the emperor has no clothes on. We can go ahead and do that. So I think it's important for people to confront it when non-Asian Americans think of certain characteristics of ours, and not letting us go into a position of that they deserve from their hard work.
And I think we should always also teach kids to speak up, but you can speak up with grace. You don't need to use cuss word. You don't need to break people's doors.
Yes, exactly. And then respect is one of the big cultural values that we have in our beautiful Asian heritage. And say in class, you don't speak up all the time and interrupt your teacher. You still have to respect your teacher. And when the teacher asks for your opinion or what you think of this concept or theory, you speak up. You don't just, timid away and kind of shy away. So we don't, we're
right.
not,
so
we're shy. That's your personal characteristic and personality, which is completely fine, but you can't judge everybody to be like that.
Right. So almost combine the Asian respect and speak up together.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go ahead. If you want to be outspoken, be outspoken. You want to lead. You want to found a group, email, community, website who can help other people. Of course, we can all do everything that other people can.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the difference between racism or discrimination? Can you help our audience, differentiate that, please?
Yes. Racism is a belief or a view by someone about that has a negative belief or view of some group of people based on their race. For example, if you just think, like earlier example, all Asians are bad drivers. Oh no, you cannot say that, because you're just saying that this race are all awful drivers and are not coordinated. That's not true.
Right.
And in terms of discrimination, is actually more of an action that you do. It could be based on prejudice. It could be based on certain stereotypes even, but it in the race context, because you can discriminate things that are not based on race, but in the racial discrimination wise, it is an action that is acted out based on the person's prejudice.
The other day, my kids are like eating Lucky Charms cereal, and then they were like, are we being like racist by like purchasing this cereal? Where do you draw the line? It's like a racial humor. Sometimes like people don't know. They think it's funny. And where do you draw the line here?
Actually, that means that you raise your kids very well, being very sensitive to stereotypes or prejudice. So that's really good that you do that. But Lucky Charms, I don't see it as a prejudice at all, not racism. It's part of the culture. The Irish community, cherish and have wonderful stories about leprechauns or Lucky Charms or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. Being an item of the culture is different than prejudice. Just like in our Chinese heritage, we have red pockets, hongbao.
Right.
Those are the kind of symbol of our celebration, or mooncakes in terms of food based on the culture that we have. Those things, I mean, if you say you like mooncakes, I have mooncakes, that doesn't mean that it's racism. It is just an object from our culture. And we all should celebrate our culture, just like the Irish and Irish Americans do with their St. Patrick's Day. It doesn't necessarily translate into prejudice. And many of the times, there's extreme prejudice that's very clear. And then there are things that are non-prejudice. And it's like a pendulum that has been mentioned before. There's black and there's white and there's a lot of shades of gray. So it's how you define where and what location that statement or that action is that distinguish it from being a prejudice, a racial prejudice, versus just a cultural behavior.
Right. And also like the social context, right? If if you guys are a group of people who you guys know each other really, really well, and you are at a party and you make something comments but because the social context is different, that you may not think it's a racial remark, but obviously, if you are in a work setting, that's a different type of scenario. You really have to be a little bit more careful.
Absolutely. And in my situation as an attorney, when it's in a serious work context and my opposing counsel say some racist comments, I would easily speak up and say that was a very racist comment, and I want you to take it back and understand why it's a racist comment and that it's not true. You're basing it on very false stereotypes. But like you said, sometimes in a social setting, in a party-like atmosphere, they say very light things, and that maybe you're not in the mood of confrontation, or they're joking around a little bit. As long as they themselves don't make that comment as a serious indication of our race and our heritage, then it's okay. But if we got to be careful sometimes. It really depends on the situation, if it's in a joking manner or if it's the kind of social setting it is in.
Yeah. So what are some tips that you have to teach our children about the issue of racism? How can we teach our kids to increase that awareness? Because sometimes, frankly, and you're a mom, like some kids, they are playing just stupid, ignorant. It's ignorant. They don't do it intentionally to hurt other people, so maybe you can give us some tips on how we can teach our children to be more sensitive to these racial remarks, or increase the awareness.
I think you did a great job on that, in talking to Sean about the Lucky Charms. I think you did a wonderful job. And for us, my husband and I, when we do see that they are making certain comments that might be based on false stereotypes that might stem from prejudice, we call them out, no matter what the setting is. Even if it's in a party in front of their friends, we will definitely do it. And I think to talk to kids about racism and discrimination, the level in which you talk to them, it really depends on their age. For example, when they're 5-year-old, I'm not going to really tell them the details of what happened to George Floyd or what happened to Vincent Chen way back in the 80s in Detroit, Michigan. Those kind of things for a 5-year-old is inappropriate. And then as they get older, they understand news and what happens out there. Then we let them know that there are people out there who are perhaps, grew up with a wrong belief in different races, or maybe they're less educated, or because they only they've never encountered an Asian American in their lives. So they just have certain beliefs about them that, that could be very dangerous. Actually, I have a great story about little kids. When my child was young, I think he was like in first grade, when he was like 6 years old, he came back home and he said, "Mom," and they don't see race. I go, "Mom, my friend, I think he needs sunscreen," because we're always telling them to wear sunscreen, because he's really, really dark. I think he's in the sun too much, Mom. I'm like, "Oh, who are you talking about? Should we let them bring an extra hat for them, or what?" It's like, "Oh my God, there's like dark all over, and they must go out. They play too much in the sun. Their mom should tell them to wear sunblock." And then I found later on that the child is just not Asian and is not Caucasian. He's actually Black. And I just thought that was, so it melted my heart to find out that at that age, you're still so innocent, and you see people for who they are, your friends for who they are. And it's nothing based on skin color. And I just thought that was just so funny. So
very cute. That's a really good one. And I think, and that's why, just talking about racism it's a serious topic, but I think it's also important to teach our kids to embrace diversity, to celebrate diversity, at the same time be proud of your own culture. So I don't you think that Asian, we all love food, and I really don't you think it's such a great media for other people to know about our culture? I mean, we really have very good food.
I think we have the best foods, but that's
I
just
think
one person's some opinion of mine. Um, since I grew up with Asian food and Chinese food, who doesn't love Chinese food? But yeah, you're absolutely right. Food, meals, it is a great medium for different cultures of people, different
Mhm.
groups from different cultures, a different race, to get together. Even within Asian American, we have Chinese, Korean, Japanese. Um, it helps bring people together, and
Yeah,
just it is just that universal medium for all of us.
yeah,
And
yeah, and I know you are in the school, bro. So I always love to participate in those cultural days. Every family set up a little booth and to learn about each other in a very fun way.
it is, I hear that this International Day is one of the most uh, fun and well attended events at many of our schools, because, well, for the kids it's like there's a lot of good food to eat.
Yeah, free food, right? Yeah.
Food, from the Korean beef ribs to, Japanese little rice with the seaweed sushi, but not exactly sushi, to Italian pasta or Mexican tacos. I mean, it depends on what each family or each culture they want to bring out. And it's a great way for them to experience what other people get to experience that they might not get from home. And we, my husband and I, we instill in our children, and they understand very much now that they're young teenagers, is that not only is diversity that you were mentioning, a characteristic of the United States, it actually is the very core of the United States. Like what you said, our country is founded on immigrants, and it's because of this richness, this diversity, that we have, innovative ideas, seeing things from many different points of view. We have the, you know, creativity from not just one kind of culture, but creativity from many different culture that comes up with the best innovations. I think it's very important that young kids know about that and understand that we are Americans, and but we're Asian Americans who have a very rich and culture and heritage.
Yeah, yeah, and and for me, living in Southern California, my job allows me to encounter a lot of Latino colleagues, and one thing I learned from them is to have fun while you work. So that's why there's so many opportunity to learn from each other, right?
Yes, absolutely. And with the Latino culture, I think one of the things besides food that we have in common within our culture is family.
Family,
And
yes.
family is to all of us, and we grow up understanding that we
Mhm.
can talk to each other. We really should help each other out, and how, having meals together, talk things. How was your day? What happened today? What did you learn today?
Mhm.
Or or just different points of view in science or politics or whatever subjects there are.
Right, right. And don't you think like movies and books are such a great medium to bridge the differences too? Like I remember years ago, there's a movie about Coco, and it's about this boy, he was in he
Day
was
of the Dead.
yeah, talk about the Day of the Dead, right? Oh my God, such a great way to bring out the richness of the Latino culture, because a lot of time there's like a lot of stereotype too. So my children, Sean went to Spanish immersion school,
Yeah.
and yeah, this little Asian speak like with a Latino accent here.
Oh, how
Uh,
cute. What school
yeah,
is that?
it was in Washington, Redondo, Washington.
Oh, yes, that's a great school. Yes, Washington, Redondo Beach.
Yeah.
And that's wonderful that you send your kid to the Spanish immersion school in Redondo Beach. Much like that, actually, we in Torrance Unified, we're very excited also to have two Spanish immersion schools coming up this fall 2021,
Mhm,
at elementary level. And it will start just with kindergarten, and then the next year after that we'll have kindergarten, first grade, and so eventually it will, be two entire schools of
Yeah.
language integration.
The reason why we want to bring this topic to our Lieu Kids family is because people always think we are silent. So I would advise our families that silence no more. Speak up, but also to understand that America is really, it's a land of opportunities. The pandemic has serviced a lot of issues and problems that these things was there before, but it never had a reason to openly discuss. I think I'm hopeful that that clash will come with reformations. And so with that, I also want to see if you have any words that you like to share with our Lieu Kids family here.
Oh, I just want to say thank you very much for having me here. And you yourself are quite a community leader and volunteer by doing.
Oh, not as much as you.
Oh, I know you gave credit. You said this is a partnership between you and other women, also other women leaders, and you are helping, a lot of us Asian American moms, especially. I loved your emails when my kids were really small. I think that really helped a lot. And thank you. And I encourage everyone to be more like you guys, the leaders in La Jaja Kids, where you do something to help with your community or with the bigger community. But these are all public service that we do. And that's one of the stereotypes that they have. Asian people, Asian Americans, they just care about themselves. They don't volunteer for the community. That's very false. And if we allow that to happen, to perpetuate, then we are going to get discriminated. The political leaders will ignore us, our community, and what needs that we have. So it's very important that we all speak up like you guys do.
Yeah, and then I want to piggyback because I know I work with a lot of first generation immigrants, and sometimes language barrier is one of a key factor that deter them from being more active in the community or volunteer in the school. But I think there's certain things you can do without using your words, like photocopying, right? Teacher love you to help out with the photocopies, right? Filing, those things don't really require a lot of verbal communications. So I definitely encourage our first generation parents to be more involved with the school, with the communities, and also donate. If you want quality education, you have to contribute. It's the tax we pay. Yes, they pay for the education, but they don't fund 100%.
Absolutely, especially in the South Bay and for us here in Torrance and Palos Verdes, there's such a huge population of Asian American students. And actually in Torrance, it's 1/3 of the students are Asian Americans. And what you said about donating, yes, be more selfless, a little selfless, and donate your time, donate your money, donate your energy, and putting in either PTAs or school site council or just individual teachers. Or the Torrance Education Foundation. We have things like that also, along with PV Peninsula Education Foundation too. It's important that we are seen out there. We do things. We care about our students very much, and we will do something about it.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Well, thank you so much. It's always nice to hear from you.
No, it's wonderful. Our conversation was really fun talking to you as always.
Okay, great. So we'll catch you next time. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.